Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 53. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson. I'm here with Julian Pombo. How are you doing today?
Hey. How's it going?
Good.
Sorry, just closing the curtains a little bit because I look like an anime villain with my eyes all whited out like that, you know? Anyway, new glasses.
Yep.
That's exciting. For you for you listeners
who watch.
Sorry, I'm not gonna sit and describe my glasses to you. They be thick though.
Yeah.
Thick with like two C's.
It's like
thick.
1950s Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, it's like Soviet Harry Potter. Wait, that's Shostakovich. Never mind. Anyway, so we're doing another sort of like band case study today. Which is exciting.
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed the last one, but last one was Jefferson Airplane, slightly older band, and this week we're going to be looking at a slightly more, contemporary band, I guess. I'm scared to when I was writing up the notes, I was actually kind of scared to do it because I know that these guys have like their fans can be, I don't know, like certainly I remember from school, like you say anything bad about them and then people just jump on and call you names. I don't know. But we're going to be talking about Muse today.
Yep.
Really interesting band. It was a bit of a nostalgia trip actually, writing up the show notes, because what I do is when I write up the show notes for these kind of episodes is I listen through their different albums as I'm writing them, just to kind of remind myself of like sound and whatever. And it was good fun. It was like getting transported back to like fourth year, learning Muse bass lines and things like that, and thinking of the coolest. This
is good for
thing
me because I know
and
next to nothing about Muse, virtually nothing.
Well, I thought I knew stuff about Muse, and then I did some research, and I was like, no, actually, didn't actually know as much as I thought I did. So, anyway, enough delay. Let's just jump into it. So, Muse are, if you don't know already, are an English band. They formed in 1994, which is surprising because, well, for me, you know, I was just like when they became relevant, it was like 2007, 2010,
right.
that kind of time. No, more like 2007, 2008. And but to think that the band is much older than that, it can take you by surprise. It took me by surprise.
Like the
Green Day as well.
And Green Day, yeah.
Yeah, and the Chili's as well, yeah. Like bands like that have been around since like, you know, and like Nirvana as well, been around since like the late 80s.
Yeah.
Or were around. It started in like the late 80s and stuff like that, and it's just like, I thought they were always like a 90s band. But anyway, so if you don't know already, 3 members: Matt Bellamy, Chris Wolstenholme on bass, and Dominic Howard on drums. Matt being like, you know, one of the most infamous guitarists. So he kind of famously gets sort of dunked on for his guitar playing. It's actually not that bad. He's actually a pretty decent guitar player, but you'll find this a lot. Like we'll talk about this in the end, but Muse has kind of become almost like a bit of a meme band in the same vein as like Coldplay.
Right.
But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just start beginning. So this is really, really cool. Really humble beginnings for this band. So they were all pals. Just the 3 of them, mates, and met up and initially started off as a glam goth band, which I didn't know was a thing. But there you go. Glam goth. And they called themselves the Rocket Baby Dolls.
Terrible name.
Which is an awful name. I'm so glad they ditched it. But yeah, Rocket Baby Dolls. They got like £150 from the Prince's Trust, and they bought some equipment, and then they played a local Battle of the Bands competition, which they won, and then proceeded to smash their equipment on stage.
Why?
Yeah, mate, it was just those what do you call them? Those Townsend vibes. You know, they were looking at the Who, and they were like, "Yes, I want to drive my headstock into the amp speaker."
I guess that's what happens when the equipment, you didn't actually pay for it with your own money.
That's true. Yeah, but that'll become a bit of a theme. You'll see that.
Okay.
There's an impressive world record that we're gonna be looking at in a minute. So, they did that, and after they won, they kind of thought, oh, maybe there's something in this, and they decided to like just take it a little bit more seriously. Started writing, gigging, and they rebranded with a proper name, Muse. And Muse is actually, I'm thinking about it now. It's a brilliant name.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. And there's so many reasons for it. It's one syllable.
Yes.
Has connotations to, I don't know, music. It's just it's easy to pronounce.
Musse.
It's great. Oh yes, I like to listen to the Muse. But yeah, so that was in like 1994, 1995. And between that sort of time, between 94, 95 and 98, they spent a lot of time just building up a fan base and gigging and, you know, making a presence. And then they started getting serious about recording some stuff. Mm-hmm. And they released their, basically, this was over 4 years. If you're you know, going from like 1994, they spent like 4 years doing this, like building this up and building up this momentum before they even released their first EP in 1998, just self-titled, which is a lot of dedication.
Mm.
You know, I suppose things are a little bit different back then. Now it's a little bit easy. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of changed a little bit. Because you need like recordings and things to promote yourself. And especially now, we can't exactly be going to local, you know, gigs and whatever and playing and garnering a fan base like that.
It was funny side tangent. I had back when I had clients come into the studio, I had a conversation with a guy, a drummer from a band who were gigging back in the early 90s, and he's kind of seen it both ends, you know, the internet side and the old side. And he can remember like going out in the middle of in the night, early morning, like 2 a.m, and sticking up posters, because you're not allowed to put posters up in street, you know, in the street and walls and stuff. So they would go out in the middle of the night and put posters up, you know, and then you would wake up the next morning and there's just posters of this band everywhere. I'm like, that's not even a concept. Like, I never even thought about that. Like, because I've just grown up in a different time. It's like the things that people must have done to get ahead in the past is like no longer a thing. Yeah,
totally. But people forget that, you know, I feel like there's what was I going to say? It's like, like the internet stuff, the social media stuff is great and all, but sometimes just going the old-fashioned route. You know, you'll notice that, you know, we kind of did the same. We were going around and we just put up loads of posters everywhere.
Yeah.
I put them up in bars, toilets, phone booths, random shops.
Yeah.
Like, if I walked past a shop and I saw that they were putting posters up, I'd be like, yo, can I put a poster up?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, that's fine, man. You know, just take one down that's like out of date and you can replace it. And I was like, yeah, cool, brilliant, no worries. Stuff like that, brilliant, yeah. So do that, you know.
Yeah.
It's not expensive to get posters printed out.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Just do it. Anyway, so back onto a little history of Muse. So, released the first EP. Not much is known about how well it did. I actually tried to find it. I couldn't find it at all.
Really?
I think I could only find their second EP, which is weird. But their second EP is great. Can I just say Muscle Museum? And that was released the following year, 1999. Got to number 3 in the Indies singles charts, which then this is kind of what basically gave them a huge boost. It kind of got noticed by NME, huge magazine. I don't know if it's still a magazine anymore, if it's just become purely online now.
I don't know.
NME fans, you can let us know if you still have a subscription. And BBC Radio 6 DJ Steve Lamack, who's also just known as Lamo. Radio 6, really, really good for alternative music. Can't say I've listened to a lot of Radio 6, but when I have, it's been good fun. And then this is crazy. Like this is in a span of like 5 years. They then go and just play Woodstock, just straight up. I mean, they don't play the main stage, but they still played Woodstock.
Okay.
Which is crazy.
Right.
They got played Woodstock, and then they got signed to a record company, or like a media company, which is now, it doesn't really exist anymore. I tried to go on their website and they were like, this domain's up for sale, and I was like, okay, cool, fair enough. And then they produced their first album with them, Showbiz, which is a good album. Highly recommend it. It's good fun. So just a little bit of let's kind of have a look at what's happened so far. I've kind of touched on it a little bit. It really seems like as soon as they won that competition, like the taking themselves seriously thing, really sort of, that idea sort of really kicked in. You can see it in their art, in their logo, and everything. It's like the Muse logo is like, it's so recognizable. I would say it's as recognizable as like the Beatles. Like you see it, you know exactly what it is. It says something. Or like the Who, and the Rolling Stones. It's up there with like Whereas now I'm trying to think of like more modern artists. Like I don't know, like Dua Lipa. She doesn't really. Can't think of anything
logo wise
that stands out there, logo wise or anything. I feel like logos are like they're so old school, but they're so, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me.
Well, logo is the sort of logo philosophy still exists. It's just slightly different. For example, I'll give you an example. Billie Eilish, basically her logo is dip dye.
Yeah,
dip dye hair.
It's her hair.
Her hair is her logo. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at the music videos, the artwork, everything's all got this sort of weird two-tone dye kind of. It's so weird.
It's become more subtle. Basically, it's not as in your face. It's just here's an image that represents us. Like
it's very her.
Here's just a name.
It's the designer's really good. They've managed to. Because other than that, she doesn't really do anything like pure crazy. It's just she sits at a piano and sings, and there's nothing really that striking. So the only thing that was striking was the hair dye. So they really zoomed in on that. I think that's kind of more of a trend now. Is like they build up a sort of a brand rather than just a singular logo thing.
Nice. Anyway, so logos, man. I mean, you can go down a more, like you said, like the more sort of subtle route, or you could like try seeing if you can just make a thing, just a logo. Just try it, see what happens. Anyway, we spoke about that. They actually took the time to sort of build a fan base. It's really important.
It helps,
to do that. Yeah, it really helps so much. You can't just go out there and expect for people to just go, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, you kind of have to really build it and work on it. The only thing I didn't really touch on was their sound, and certainly in the earlier recordings, I was taken aback by how I forgot how recognizable their sound is, whether you like it or not. Like Bellamy's like vocals are like iconic, with a sort of like, you know, gaspy falsetto, and you know, some people find it really annoying and whiny, but
it's a tortured sound.
It kind of works. Yeah. And the music is great. Like, honestly, like, it's got this weird mixture of like, it's almost like it's like rock opera, but it's like, and it's proggy, and it's grungy. It's like it's a very, very niche, unique kind of thing. Which, when you think about, if you're thinking back to like 1999, 2000, you know, and you're thinking about bands that came out or that were big around then, nobody sounded like that, really. No. You know, it was all like, I don't know, like pop punk and things like that. You know, sort of bright, happy, you know, spanky guitars.
Yep.
You know, and none of this, like, you know, sort of like weird, like melancholic sounding like piano with like a really, really dirty bass in the background and stuff. Yeah,
vocal really, harmonies really cool. And stuff like that. It kind of reminiscent of like ELO or Queen.
It's got that. Yeah, that's where the sort of rock opera kind of vibe comes from, which is that sort of Queenie kind of vibe. Yeah. It's fascinating. Anyway, so, and again, this is stuff that we've touched on before. Like, they established a really interesting sound. They set themselves apart. I should add, like, it's not totally out there and weird. There's still things that are recognizable.
Yeah.
It's just they've really crafted something really unique, interesting and new. You know, clear artistic vision, which we talked about with Bradley as well. You can listen to that episode if you're interested. Building a fan base, spoken about that. The last thing, if this works for you, it works for you. That, I mean, getting signed is one of these things that like hardly ever happens anymore. It can happen. It's you're more likely to just be like an independent artist. But at least getting some help with managing your admin stuff can be really, really helpful. And it kind of worked for them because it meant that they really just got to just hone their sound and focus on their sound and develop something interesting. Now, we're going to carry on. We have a really fascinating history rest ahead of us.
Okay.
So, good beginnings, and the middle is mad. So they released the second album in 2001.
Yep.
And at this point, they started adding way more like just weird stuff. You know, like Animal Bones, church organs, just like really messing around with the sound. Yeah, as percussion.
Wow. How do you tune an animal bone?
I don't know, man. I would imagine that if you hit like two bones together, you'd probably get like it's almost like a really, really gross, like I don't know, like a clave or something, you know?
Aye, that's
sort of like clicky kind of sound. Not very vegan friendly, but
no, I wouldn't imagine.
No, and. When I was reading this, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. They did a cover of Feeling Good, which was played everywhere, like all the time.
Yeah,
it was even in an advert. It was in like a Nestle advert, which they sued Nestle because they used it without permission.
Really?
and that got them a ton of stuff. You'll notice that they like to take legal action against people, sometimes for legit reasons, like you didn't ask us if we could use our song, and yeah, this next one is ridiculous. But hey, again, sometimes
protect your
any
stuff.
kind of press is good press, you know?
Yeah.
2002, they threatened Celine Dion with legal action because she was going to name her Las Vegas show Muse.
Right.
And apparently, Muse have the worldwide performing rights to the name Muse, which, in hindsight, they should have warned the Greeks about that. Because there's muses appearing all the time in Greek mythology. Anyway.
So did they own the word Muse?
They own the word Muse. I'm assuming with a capital M. I don't know.
Okay.
It was weird. I know. Crazy. Celine Dion was like, yo, here's like 50 grand so I can use it. And they were like, no. And the reason why was because we don't want people to turn up there thinking we're Celine Dion's backing band.
That's great.
I mean,
no one would ever think that.
I read
ever.
that and I was like, that's funny, and also like, come on, like, check your ego, like, relax. If it was me, I don't know, maybe I'm just too nice. If Celine Dion came up to me and was like, I'm doing like a Portuguese themed, like, Las Vegas night about pigeons. Can I use the name Pombo? I'd be like, yeah, man, go for it, whatever.
Such a weird.
I don't know.
It's such a weird. Like, it's just a word. It doesn't mean your band. It meant something for thousands of years before your band. Like, I don't know. Like, no one in their right mind is going to go, oh, is Celine Dion doing covers of Muse? No one's going to think that. The branding will be different. Absolutely everything will be different.
Like 2002, like Muse were big, but I don't think they were like that big. Do you know what I mean? Like they were big, but it's not like people just instantly assumed Muse and just thought of the band instantly. You know, it's bizarre. Yeah, really weird. But anyway, it seemed to have turned out well for them because I think they got a lot of publicity out of it.
Right.
They then released another album, 2003. You'll see this a lot, actually. There's got almost like a bit of a pattern going on. Third album, Absolution, #1 in the UK.
Nice.
And it got them their first top 10 hit, Time Is Running Out, which is actually, it's a good song. And then the following year, they won a Brit Award, Best British Live Act. They won loads of different awards. A couple of them, I was like, some minor awards, but a Brit Award, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And 2004, this is going back to 1994, they set a bit of a world record for destroying the most guitars during a tour. 140 guitars destroyed in one tour.
That's mad.
I can't even, like, I'm looking at my guitars and like, I mean, I'm looking at my nice bass, but I'm looking at the guitars that maybe aren't so nice, and I'm like, I wouldn't even dare.
Nah.
You know?
Yeah, but to be fair, like, those 140 guitars, I would highly doubt that they paid for any of those. They're most likely endorsements, free guitars from companies.
Aye. Yeah.
I know, so it's just, I just don't like that.
No,
smashing up stuff.
I hate it as well. 2004, 2 years later, 2006, another album, Black Holes and Revelations, classic album. It's pretty well known. You'll have seen the cover. There's like a couple of dudes like sitting in a desert. It's really recognizable. Great, again, charted #1 in the UK, most of Europe, and Australia. Just did really, really well. 2007, setting another world record. First band to sell out Wembley Stadium. First band ever in history.
How's that? Has it never been sold out before?
No, apparently not. Not until Muse came along. and sold it out, which is mad.
I didn't know that.
Now this is kind of I put this in because this is kind of important. You know how we talk about like relationships and stuff like that, and checking in on people in your band. Unlike Jefferson Airplane, where they sort of fell down into these vice rabbit holes, the drugs, and all that kind of stuff, which then led to a whole array of problems. Muse kind of did the opposite. Their bass player was, they checked him into rehab because he was having problems with alcohol, because they were very adamant on preserving the band. You know, I think he's quoted as saying, like, you know, we've been together for like 18 years at this point. And I can't imagine not, you know, like the band is the three of us. It's not like, you know, so we're not getting rid of anybody. We're, you know, sitting tight, and we're gonna help each other through this so the band gets through it, which is really, really admirable, to be fair. It's really, really cool. That was during their 5th album, Resistance. Again, solid album, really, really good. Again, just number ones after number ones, up to a point.
Okay.
Which is interesting. That was 2009. 2012, another number one with The Second Law. 2015, 7 studio album. Again, hits the top of the UK charts. Wins a Grammy for Best Rock Album. And then 2018, they release another album, but it stops doing as well. It kind of got like reviews,
right?
So I was thinking, I was like, what's happening here? Because like as I was reading as well, something I forgot to mention was like they're gigging loads, and although like their albums are getting like number ones and stuff, the reviews are becoming less favorable as the albums come out,
right?
And they're just getting a bit more meh and a bit more bleh.
Why?
Well, basically, I was trying to figure this out because I was listening to them, and it was kind of hard to pin down. But as soon as I tell you this word, you're gonna kind of get it.
Okay.
I've termed it. I don't think I've termed it. I think somebody else has it. I call it sequelitis. I don't know if you've ever heard of.
Okay, yeah.
If you do, you know what I mean by that?
Sequelitis meaning your fans have a certain expectation of what's coming, and then when it does come, it's underwhelming because you've hyped it up so much.
Kinda, yeah. It's a bit of both. That and like you're releasing one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, after another.
Right.
That you're kind of just nothing's developing. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like it's like genetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mix up the gene pool in one way or another, things just start getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So then you start seeing more like genetic diseases, whatever. And I get the feeling it was the same kind of thing. They were creating so many things, one after the other. They don't have the biggest break I think that they had was between like 2003 and 2006, right? And that album, Absolution, Black Holes and Revelations, 2 fantastic albums. But then you notice there that they're not really taking. It's like 1-2 years between each album, and they're kind of they're at a point where they could just like stop, just for a little bit.
Okay.
Just for a tiny little baby bit, and almost like recharge. Like I get it. Like from looking at them perform, it looks like they really just enjoy the active music making, you know, and that's really important. But that's great. It's fantastic. And they're still doing well, right? Regardless of reviews or whatever, or critical acclaim, whatever. They've got their fans. They're still touring. They're still gigging. They've got millions of pounds, and I'm sitting here at my tiny desk with my epic gaming PC, right? So it says a lot. But so they're doing fine. But the thing that shocked me is that this band that has had such a big cultural impact, even when I was listening to them, I was like, oh yeah, like this was a huge part of my sort of almost like soundscape.
Yeah.
In like the in like 2007 to 2010, 2012, I was listening to Muse, and it was getting played, and you would hear it all the time. And even though they're playing these huge shows, no one plays them. Even like rock radio stations sometimes are like adverse to playing them. They'll play something way older.
Right. Okay.
And I'm sort of sitting here going, like, why?
Why?
It's just bizarre.
Is it?
I don't
has
get
it
it.
gotten Brian Adams syndrome? So back in 1991, Everything I Do for You was in the charts forever. It was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's like at the time it broke the record as at number one for the longest amount of time ever. And to a point where when it was finished, for years and years and years later, nobody ever played it because it was just constant. Like it became a meme. Like, just enough of this. Do you think it's something to do with?
I think it's partly kind of that. Yeah, I'm gonna do a little comparison here. So okay, around 8 million monthly listeners, but I wonder, like, let's pick another artist that is as big as Muse were back in the day. Now, like, Billie Eilish, actually.
Billie Eilish.
Okay. Muse gets about 8 million monthly listeners.
Sure.
Fantastic. Really, really good.
Yep.
Billie Eilish gets 52 million.
Uh-huh.
Do you see what I mean?
But
so like
the difference
that whole
is,
thing of like not being widely listened to anymore. But if we can,
the thing is though, like the Eye of Sauron is on Billie Eilish right now. Like the entire mainstream thing right now is on her. The Eye of Sauron hasn't been on them since 2007.
I know, but what about another band which hasn't really had the Eye of Sauron on it that much? It's probably in like its peripheral vision.
Right.
The Beatles. Has like more than double the amount of listeners that Muse does. 23 million.
The Beatles is.
But again,
do you know what I mean?
But what I'm saying is that from looking at Muse's history, they should be as relevant, if not more, because they've honestly they shaped so much, they won so much. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
a very similar story to Metallica. Metallica have influenced. They're one of the biggest influencers in the metal genre, if not the biggest, alongside Led Zeppelin. But everybody loves to hate them.
Yeah, and Coldplay as well. Coldplay's another example. Although, to be fair, I think everybody just likes to hate Chris Martin, which is understandable. No, you shouldn't be hating anybody. But it's so
it's weird that.
Yeah, so it was such a bizarre band to research because I ended up sort of thinking, what is, they're still successful. They're still doing fine, but they're not at the same time.
So they used,
because even if we compare it to like Metallica, actually, that's a good example. They still have way more listeners than Muse.
Right, okay.
They have like 15 million.
Right, okay.
Just under double.
Could it be that because I'm trying to think back to that time, and that sort of neo-Queen thing was trending then. Like you think of like the Darkness were doing it.
Yeah.
To some extent, Mika. There was a lot of artists that were kind of reviving this sort of glam kind of thing. What I'm trying to say is,
the Killers
whilst the Eye of Sauron was focused on them, they gathered a fan base, and now that the Eye of Sauron has moved off, the fans that they accumulated during that time are still with them, but they can't really attract any new fans because the Eye of Sauron's not even anywhere near them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Although, it's weird. At the same time, I don't know that if they're really trying to at this point anymore. I don't think they're trying to attract anybody new, if you know what I mean. They're kind of everything that they're doing is just for the fans, and that's it, and for themselves. Which is definitely an approach you can take.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's fulfilling. I don't know. There's two ways there's two sort of lessons you can kind of learn, I guess. One of them being when you're a band as big as Muse and the attention drifts away from you, maintain that loyal fan base because they've been good at doing that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people said about their albums, they have like a hardcore following.
Definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's great. But at the same time, I think it's me personally. I don't know that I would be happy preaching to the choir, if that makes sense. I'd be wanting to, and I'm sure that's not what they're trying to do. I would get to the point where I would be trying to still reach people. It can be, you can kind of get into this kind of dangerous position where you're like not really branching out. And I'm not saying that you should be changing your sound, but like when you're a musician, when you're an artist, you should be challenging people all the time. I feel, John Cage has a really good, there's a really good quote from him, and some parts of it ring true. He was saying that if, as an artist, you're not irritating people, you're not doing your job right.
Okay.
And there's some truth, there's kind of a little bit of truth to that, in that you should be engaging people and making them think and engage with the stuff that you're making.
Right.
To an extent. That's just me. If you're happy, just sort of, you've got your fan base, and that's it.
There is a bit of
really cool.
There is a bit of a phenomenon you see in folk who have been in the limelight and have accumulated a massive following and haven't really been widely recognized since that time, other than that material that they made. I'll give you an example. Elton John has released a studio album virtually every 2 years since the 1970s. And the vast majority of the music that man has made has been not hits. Like, listen to the last 10 albums he's done. I bet you don't know a single song off them. The only ones you know are the ones they did back in the day. And it's the same with Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney has just dropped a studio album like in the last month. And like, hum a song from it. Like, you can't, but you can hum another 50 of his songs that, were written 50 years ago that everybody knows so well. I just think there's just that, there's a time for an artist that seems to be that they gather the most amount of attention and the most amount of followers, and they become established, and then after that they can continue their success because Paul McCartney can still sell out stadiums, but it ain't based on his new stuff. Yeah, totally. It's based on all the stuff he did.
It's not. It never is. It's the same with like Deep Purple as well.
Yeah,
like people go and listen to Deep Purple because they want to go listen to Deep Purple, and not necessarily the new Deep Purple album. Although I'm sure there's people that are like, oh yeah, new Deep Purple album, awesome.
I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's fantastic, but it's just not. I don't know why this happens, because
no,
is it something to do with like once you get established and once you get associated with your certain sounds and songs that everyone grows up with, you just can't create new stuff. I mean, it'd be cool to find a band or a set of bands that have broken that stereotype and have managed to create amazing songs for decades and decades and decades, and everyone remembers for all of them. There was one band that did that for a long, long time, right from the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and that was the Bee Gees. They did that, and they wrote for other people as well. Their songs traveled through time quite well for a long, long time. There's a couple of bands. Yeah, we should do a podcast on that. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, we should. I need to see if I can find a band that did that. Managed to sort of do what you just said there.
It's so weird. It's such a weird phenomenon, because there's no sort of shortage of music from people like. Again, I mentioned ELO. They released an album. Jeff Lynne released an album last year, I think, and I had to listen to it, and it's sonically, melodically, rhythmically, it's not that far off what he did back in the 70s, but nobody knows it. No one's listening to it apart from fans of ELO.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
Well, that's I mean, like, that's kind of what I suppose maybe that's the problem there, is that it goes back to this kind of like trying to it's a really careful tightrope that you need to walk, because at the same time you're not wanting to do the thing which, again, I think we've spoken against, which is like, what's everybody else doing? I'm gonna do that.
No.
Oh, like trap cicada, like hi-hat. Yeah. Oh no, maybe in the right context it could sound good. I'm not that adverse to it, but when it's everywhere, I'm like, no, get that away.
I'll run it by Scott Figgins' next Eriska album, see what he thinks.
Just double kick drums on everything.
Yeah, that'll go down well.
Oh, that'll go down so well. I mean, I would listen to it, but that's just me. Anyway, but yeah, so it's a careful tightrope that you need to walk, because you don't want to conform and do what everybody else is doing, and you also want to retain your own original voice.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a tricky thing. The only person, actually, as I was thinking there, somebody who has kind of had, although it's been interesting, like he's had like an impact in every single decade that he's kind of been involved in, is David Bowie, because but that's more to do with the fact that he had characters and he had certain sounds and he was tapping into things, and like even his latest album, is it Black Star? Was that the last album?
Black Star, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that being everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, it was one of the big reasons that it became so big was because, I don't know if he did this knowingly or not, but he used his death as like this last big like publicity, like push, and it basically sold his album, but. And there is connotations in that when you listen to the album, is that he knows, he's like tied it into, it's fascinating. Okay. It's morbid to think about, but even that album, I remember that being played and that being a big thing and being featured. And
was it featured because album. He died? If he had still been alive, would it have been?
I think it was partly featured because he died.
It's kind of the same thing with Michael Jackson. His This Is It album, it probably wouldn't have gotten to where it got. Although he was pushing the tour and the final album thing, because it was This Is It. This is the final. I'm not doing it again after this. This is it. So obviously he was that was going to be a big push but the fact that he died as well was an even bigger thing. It's exceptionally rare to find an artist that is relevant for decades and decades and decades. I mean, you can find hundreds of artists that were big at one time and are still releasing material to this day, but aren't relevant anymore. There's dozens of them still releasing stuff, and it's only super fans that listen to it. It never gets into the charts. But even the charts, like, is nothing to go on.
What are the charts anymore anyway?
No, it doesn't.
Like, the charts now are, Spotify and YouTube and TikTok, really.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Like, I would say that in terms of charts, I would say, like, are people, if you played a song from Elton John's new album, is 70% of the pub that you're playing it in, could they sing along to it? And if the answer is no, then it's not. But you can play Candle in the Wind and everyone in the pub will sing along to it because they know it. Because that's how I would rate, like, if you're really still relevant, is can people sing, your best hit from your latest album, even now after 40 years. And try find me an artist that can do that and has been doing that since like the 60s or 70s. It's like rare. I can't even think of one, if I'm quite honest. I couldn't sing a single song from Black Star, but I don't really like David Bowie, so that's but I can sing you a David Bowie song, even though I don't really know him. I only know a couple of songs, but I know Let's Dance. Who doesn't know Let's Dance?
Yeah, well, who doesn't?
Right? I don't know. It's an interesting thought. We'll maybe go into that in a bit more detail later. So Muse.
Well,
I feel like I know more about Muse.
Yeah, I hope I haven't angered too many Muse super fans. If you have, please feel free to send your letters of complaint and death threats over whatever our contact email is.
No, because it comes into me. I didn't do it. I didn't write this.
Oh, you were an accomplice. Oh, there we go. There's the evil, like, anime glasses.
You look like some video game, like, evil character.
Oh boy.
Cool. So that was cool. We'll definitely do more of these.
If there's a band that you're like, it would be interesting to learn about this band or whatever.
Yeah.
Hit us up, please, and let us know. Don't be shy.
Yeah. Because it's good to,
like, as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, send us a message right now.
Yeah.
You have 5 seconds. I'm joking.
4, 3, 2, 1, go. It's good because it's good looking and analysing other folk and seeing what they did and what they didn't do and see what happened. And it just kind of informs your decisions. Like, you can go,
totally.
This worked, this doesn't work. There are certain, there's rules and exceptions to rules. Like, there's generally, like, this doesn't work, or generally this works. Like, generally communication between band members is a good idea, but there can be exceptions. Like, you've got to understand that obviously there are some. You can probably find a band that, like, all they did was take drugs. They never talked to their band members, and they're the biggest thing ever. Like, it's an anomaly.
Exactly. Like, Jefferson Airplane at one point. They were just
pretty much all
on all the drugs.
Yep, all of them. So
it was the 70s. So
So that was cool. We'll try and think of some other bands, and if there's any bands that anyone wants us to cover, let us know. And that concludes 1 year of Level Up Your Band. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So
woohoo!
We go now onto a new Level Up Your Year, Level Up Your year
new
2.
Season, whatever.
New season 2, episode 54. I really should do a proper like anniversary episode, but I can't think of anything, so we'll see what happens.
We could do like a year in retrospect. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, we could talk about like the things that I've learned maybe from not being allowed to gig. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. It might be if it's too depressing, we won't do it. But yeah, I
don't know, man. I don't. It's been tough for everybody, but honestly, like, I've been trying to look at all the good things that have come out of it for me. I think everybody's kind of doing that. But
cool. So as always, if you're enjoying the podcast, leaving us a review would help us immensely. It gets out to much more people. We want as many people, musicians, listening to this as possible, because that would be nice. There's a lot of advice that I wish I had got, if I was starting bands, that I had to learn the hard way. Sometimes learning the hard way that's fine. But yeah, if there's anyone that who maybe needing some advice, if they're starting a band, just put them onto the podcast. It's free. Why not? And as always, if you need extra help on like music theory and stuff like that, we have a couple of worksheets up on the website.
Yeah.
At levelupyourband.com. You can download some free PDFs, etc. There's a couple of things on there you can check out. We're on YouTube
gear stuff as well.
We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the rest of it. Check it out. Have a wee subscribe. So 1 year, awesome, and we're still doing it. Who knew?
I know.
So hopefully,
this is actually the first episode where I've had good internet.
Yeah,
and there's been no issues.
It's only taken a year.
It took a year, and also I didn't money.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Yeah, now it's fine.
So here's to another year of level up your band. Hopefully we're going to level up lots of bands in the coming year.
That's the dream.
So hope you all have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.